Panzer Dragoon Saga is one of the best RPGs, no, one of the best games I've ever played. Don't believe me? Well, I'll do my best to convince you. So the Saturn was basically dead in 1998 everywhere but in Japan, and even in Japan it wasn't doing that well. There were many late Saturn and Dreamcast releases that remain untranslated in the West. I think the most famous example on the Dreamcast is SEGA Gaga, but due to some miracle, some form of divine intervention, Panzer Dragoon Saga on the Saturn was translated to English officially by SEGA. It's an extremely rare and expensive game physically, so it makes sense why a lot of people, especially in the West, haven't heard of it. It's also a game on a console that's often overshadowed by the Dreamcast, with many YouTubers even pretending the Saturn couldn't really do 3D, which disinterests a lot of people in the console, and even emulating the game isn't very easy because it has 4 discs and emulators get kind of weird with that, even if the game itself is pretty short for an RPG. But if you can get past all of that and get into the game, you can truly play something unique and amazing. This game changed me as a person. It was a huge influence on the way I write world-building fiction, even though I'll probably never publish anything I've written. It helped me find beauty in things I would previously just not understand. This game is truly special. This video will spoil basically the entire game for you. If you didn't want that, go play it. If you don't want to play it but want to still sort of experience the game, I've completed a Let's Play beforehand. If that's too slow for you, stick around. This will also spoil quite a bit of Panzer Dragoon 2's Way and the first Panzer Dragoon game as well, so be prepared. Also, this game is full of some very rich FMV scenes that help tell the story. If you're playing it, please don't skip them. You won't understand what's going on. So, after the nearly 2-minute long intro, you're on the main menu. You can already feel how different this game is from most RPGs. Just here, the game's music, visual style, and world are what truly sells this game to me. And it begins selling it to you before you even start the game. The introductory FMV shows us a bunch of scenes we can't quite put together, but once we see them in the game, we'll immediately recognize them. Now, we can begin the game and we're hit with another 11-minute cutscene, something I sort of appreciate. You see, most JRPGs that I've played kind of open by you running around the town, waiting for the story to sort of start beginning, and you fumble your way through, slowly talking to people. But Panzer Dragoon Saga isn't about that. It doesn't drag its feet most of the time, and that's something I really respect. In the very first moment of the cutscene, we can already tell we're at some kind of fucked up location, with the panning shots showing us the crude, rusted steel structures on the edge of some kind of chasm. We can also see these weird white things around the place, we'll get to those later. We can also see the logo of the main controlling faction, and then something flies above this guy. His name's Edge. We play as him. He's introduced as just one of the mercenary guards on this outpost. Everything is calm until it isn't. There's some beast in the mine, a beast from the ancient age. Then the narration begins.
栄華を誇った文明が滅んで数千年。かつての力を失った人類は、自らが生み出した遺伝子改造による生物兵器に脅かされつつ、黄昏の時代を過ごしている。
It's important to mention that characters in this game, at specific points in time, speak in Panzerese, which is a mix of Latin, German, and ancient Greek spoken with a Japanese accent. But from my understanding, they don't speak that way all the time. Anyways, the scene cuts to some airships flying, and now these ships are interesting. They're these sort of metally rusted ships, lifted in the air by these things, you know, the white things from earlier. These are pieces of ancient machinery that we can now control. Then we see a new logo and a new faction. They're headed towards Excavation Site 4. There's an operation at the Imperial capital. Arwen and this man, this very important man, are planning a rebellion. Then the news of that monster coming from the excavation site 4 confirms Edge is at excavation site 4. And meanwhile over there, shit's going down. This monster is just unharmed by the weapons. This isn't the half-breed, it's a full-blooded one, which refers to the difference between the mutated creatures that are related to the beasts and created by the ancients, and the pure-type creatures, which are the direct descendants of the biomechanical monsters. I love how this creature looks, by the way. Anyways, it rips a large chunk of stone out from behind Edge, barely missing him, just showing how dangerous it is. But by doing so, it reveals something. There's a girl. And Edge ends up having a vision, and he sees some shit. We don't know who she is, but the monster is still there. So Edge fires a rocket at the floor, causing the monster to fall down the mine. As our wounded crewmen get out of the mine, we can already see these guys are here. The rebellion has started. We can see Zastava, the mask guy. We've already met Arwen, and we get knocked out. And the main guy, Trayman, is clearly very interested in something in this mine. We wake up later, seeing all of our comrades dead, although they forgot to kill us. Meanwhile, the ship is taking off with the girl that was in there, and as we run after her, we see Zastava, and he shoots us, and we fall down into the depths. But there's still one more scene. You see, in the capital of the Empire, the surprise that they planned has gone off. This is the first time that we really see the power of the weapons the ancients left for us. We're told more about how advanced the tech is later, and we also meet the king here. He knows what's happening, and we immediately learn the Empire wants to control this thing called the Tower, and Trayman does as well. So in order to stop them, they'll use the flagship, Grig Orin. It seems that the only reason why the Emperor hasn't died in the attack was because he was floating above the city. Okay, so one thing I should mention here is that the girl's name is Azel. It's pretty obvious she's a key plot point, both from the game's cover and the Japanese name of the game being Azel Panzer Dragoon RPG, so yeah. Now the real game can begin, with the game referring to us as the one that controls Edge, and then it asks for our name. So Edge already has a name, and they still call him Edge, so this doesn't seem to have any real impact past the name of your save file, except at one point in time when it blows your fucking mind. And I only realized this now, but this background is very familiar to me now. As we set the name, light forms into a sphere, and we travel down a deep area. Something I love about these games is just how massive these places are, and at the bottom it creates a ton of light. Edge's body absorbs the energy, he wakes up and swims to the surface. It's unclear if Edge was dead or not, by the way, though you could make an argument for either case. So anyways, after Edge figures out that this place is huge, we take control. I love the atmosphere of this area. It shows how we're basically alone in this huge place. This area is a little bit of a tutorial that kind of forces us to learn how the interaction system works. That works in a kind of similar nod to how the previous rail shooter games worked. So you hit a button and wow, there's a selector thing. And there's a far and a near mode, with extra interactivity. When something is far away, Edge can comment on it. When we're close to it, we can interact with it. It's a cool little system. Anyways, so there are these little sort of crate things. We get an ancient gun with a dragon design and an elevator key. On the other side, there's also an engraving of a dragon. Ooh. And as we activate an elevator, a cutscene begins. We can see a bunch of lights start up. Uh-oh. These beasts are the same ones that Edge faced earlier. And there's a ton of them. The gun, as fancy as it looks, doesn't seem to be doing anything, and Edge's probably thinking of jumping, and then a large beam of curved light hits all of them, just obliterating them. Here's the dragon. The weakest form of the dragon, that is. It can't speak to us, not in words, but just by being near it, we can again have a vision. We know that both Azel and that tower in the distance are important, and the dragon seems to want us to ride it towards there. The dragon basically chose Edge. And now the game can truly finally begin. The dragon is flown forwards with the B button, and you control where you're going with the stick. Imagine it similar to how you swim in something like Mario 64. We can also just break objects to get items, though some objects can only be interacted with without actually using them. You can enter places as well, you can start up some things, it's nice. At this point, I was already invested, but that's not where the game convinced me it was one of, if not the best games I've ever played. This area has no monsters, and you just fly through it enjoying the atmosphere. You can interact with some objects, it's your first tutorial area. Then there's a save structure. Entering the tunnel in a way that I actually really dig, because it kind of shows how tiny we are compared to the rest of the game, we arrive at the excavation site. This area feels so desolate. As we interact with the guy here, a new cutscene begins. Basically, he's still alive, but barely. He wants us to kill Kramen. Kramen leads the Black Fleet, the rebelling faction. And sadly, we're as good as dead here because the Empire doesn't like loose ends, unless we recover that girl, Azel. The captain gives us a map of the world and then dies. Then we're hit with the tutorial screen. This is stuff that you'll learn throughout playing, but let's go over them. Basically, our dragon has 3 action gauges that charge over time. Enemies also have them. Our dragon can move around the enemy to 4 sides, but that pauses our action gauge's charge. Some sides are safe, some sides are more dangerous. Sometimes an enemy may be immune on one side but weak on the other, so it'll try to move and rotate towards us so it's harder for us to hit it. Berserk abilities are like your mana. Some can be used depending on the type of dragon you have, though I've only left the dragon in the default balanced mode, and I haven't had any issues while playing. Also, some enemies are only weak to your gun, while others are only weak to your lasers. Here we encounter the first and simplest puzzle. There are these fans that stop monsters from reaching these parts of the canyon, so we go into a nearby cave and turn them off. As we enter the deep canyon gulch, we see a downed ship. It seems that the Black Fleet have already engaged with the Empire's troops. Was the dragon stolen from them? Could there be more? We'll find out the second one soonish. Not really. Anyways, as we get our first proper taste of the combat, we can proceed and find some wacky creatures. There's the Baldor, Gelada Urchins, Baldor Queens, and I have to say, I love how these things are designed. They're so alien, so uncomfortably strange. I love it. We then see a waterfall, and as video games dictate, we go under it. This area is roughly when I was sold on the game. Flying through this area with this music. Of course, I muted the sound effects in post and stitched the footage together without the battles, but I hope that you can feel how I feel. I get that the N64 was, on paper, a more powerful console, but I've never seen such a beautiful combination of visuals and sounds on any platform, really, except this one. Making our way through, we hear quakes. We see a guy running on what seems to be a cooler, and then the giant beast breaks through the wall. He drops the cooler like Mario drops Yoshi, and barely survives, though we jump in to save him. Arachnoth, our first boss. This is where the game tests how we understand if the combat system works. We also learn here that the enemies have patterns we can use and abuse. For instance, this fucker will charge at us if we stay in the red zone for too long, and then get stuck. That's when we can really hit it. After it dies in quite a gross fashion, we pick the guy up. He thinks we could use the dragon to fight against the Empire, and assumes that this guy, who wears a mask by the way, is one of Kramen's. But no, he is a Seeker. They'll become important around Disc 4, spoilers. This guy's name is Gash. He asks us for a bit of a lift, out of the canyons and towards his village. But when we get there, it's just ruined. We can see how dangerous these monsters are. Meanwhile, Gash tells us the oracles have foretold a dragon would end the Empire's reign. Gash also tells us about the so-called Divine Visitor, as he's searching for him. Gash does something a little subtle here. I'm not sure if he caught it or not. You'll realize it by the end. And that's sadly all that Gash can reveal for us. Though, he also tells us Kramen is headed towards the desert, and that he led the monsters towards the village here. Seekers always leave information for their kind after their deaths, so that's why we know. Here's one of the many camps we can rest at throughout the game, and we can ask Gash a lot of questions. There's a lot of stuff here, but basically we have to cross the desert, we have to use underground tunnels dug by worms, then reach the Oasis, drain it, go through it, find an entrance to some underground ruin, and then go through it. You can also name your dragon, but I just called him Dragon. As we head through the Gorilla Desert, we can see how massive and desolate this area is. It's quite the theme. Here we can find some field maps which help us know where we are. There are some monsters here like the Nanid Swarm. You have to kill the queen for the enemies to disperse. We also find the sunken ship from the ancient age with 6 thingies around our cursor when we select it. This will be important later. We also encounter a Strider pack, and while we're going around, we encounter something strange blocking what seems to be a tunnel. It's a Latham, the most disgusting thing alive. How do we kill something this big? Well, we find a weak spot. You shoot its skin until it reveals the weak spot, then you target it. It'll eventually cover the weak spot back up and move it, but once you hit it enough times, it dies. Also, while we're at the Oasis, the entrance is blocked by the ruin. So, we just have to destroy some ancient artifacts to open it up. We can also find hoppers here and pludges, and oh, in here we can find an upgrade for our gun, one of many. But the Oasis is merely a tunnel. By the way, I love how the area we fight monsters in is related to the huge area we find ourselves in while flying the dragon, not just in a random field somewhere. By the way, at some point we get these D units that are parts of something greater. Collect all 12, it's worth it. I'll be mentioning when I got some of them, but not all of them, so good luck. I did get all of them, by the way. Breaking more of these weird things lets a tornado open a hole in the huge structure for us. As we go in, we see a Gigrolith in these huge ruins. It's kinda small, but as we shoot it, it cries out and something huge travels to us. A Gigra. Eventually, it reveals itself, and as we kill the Gigrolith, the Gigra eats it and activates itself. It's weak at the front, but it can also hit us there for loads of damage, and it starts switching through forms. Now it's defensive, so we have to attack its face, but it'll try to shield itself, so we have to paralyze its arms so we can hit it. Oh, and once we hit it enough times, it enters the complete form. Some more trouble and we've downed it, and wow, our dragon changed to the Valiant Wing. We've unlocked some more abilities and oh, it's back, we haven't killed it. But our dragon decides to end the rematch decisively. It enters a defensive form blocking all damage, then an offensive form to fire off a huge laser attack which finally destroys the thing for good, before returning to normal. Our dragon can morph. I haven't really used this feature. We kind of let Gash go off here on his own, and if we go east, we can find a caravan. There's a kid there who mistakes us for a new hunter, but as we enter this hut, we can see that the pendant that Gash left for us is now recognized. This guy tells us about a storm that blows surrounding a ruin from the ancient age just north of here. but the area is dangerous as entire fleets disappeared there, and there's also a shop where you can buy and sell stuff. So as we head to this forbidden zone, we're hit with the second thing I love about this game. It's how foreboding the ancient structures are. They're just so huge and strange, they kind of trigger your fight and flight response. Here we learn about type powers and encounter some pure type enemies like Lazarus Kim as a normal Lazara. Once we push all the locks towards the central spire, the transporter seal is broken and we can reactivate it. Flying up, we'll encounter Kramen's ship and his elite guard, and you know what time it is, and they're kind of scared shitless. His ships aren't an issue at all if you know what you're doing, and his main ship can be tricked into firing homing mines repeatedly until it runs out. Then it'll switch to a side firing mode where you just have to move to the front to dodge it. Do that enough times and you can severely damage the ship, and running into it in the cutscene, we encounter Arwen, who was in Kramen, and it turns out this was a trap. Uh-oh. And now that we jump out, we see that it's a huge dragon, and Azel. It's a first boss fight with the Atom Dragon. He wants her to just talk to him, but Azel isn't listening. Kramen's enemy is her enemy, basically, and that's that. So you need to target the tail of Atom while not being in front or behind unless you're ready to fire. Here's an important note, you can just queue up actions by holding them. So, to fire immediately after moving, hold A while you're moving, this way the enemy doesn't have a chance to shoot you before you shoot. Once she says, Nerai, you want to be in front of the dragon, otherwise you're hit by the Berserker Rage, which hits you so many times it starts to lag the game. After hitting the dragon enough times, they run away. Time for Disc 2. Now, back at the caravan, we can see the people there have heard of what happened previously, and that the Empire sent some ships over to investigate. We also hear that this caravan is headed towards the Zoa Forest, as there's a big town there protected by the guards. This is the next place we'll head to as well. At the village of Zoa, we see a guy who thinks we're a hunter. He will be a tiny bit important later. Exploring this town is where you can truly see how pretty the Saturn's 3D can look. There's a bar here, we can talk to a guy who wants to sell us a drink, but going upstairs we can meet some guy who tells us about going to the Liberal District, some rumors about the town, how it's not very friendly to outsiders and how it may be hiding something. And people in general aren't just that happy. In one house, this guy talks to us about how in order to become a citizen of the Holy District, we need to show them our faith. Basically, there are two parts of the city, the Liberal District, which far more people can go to, and the Holy District, which is like an upper part of the city, protected from outsiders. Anyways, so at the bar, there's the drink guy, right? So he tells us more about the Empire, how a black ship passed by near the town, and it's apparently searching for a tower, and there's a guy called Paet, some guy who looks after relics, and we should talk to him. We also get a picture of the tower here. So, we also get a small document about the regulation of Imperial troops. Basically, it tells us what the Empire thinks of the frontier, the area we're in. They think the people here are uncivilized as they fear the ancient machines, and the Empire wants to cleanse the world of monsters and return humans to their former glory, destroying anyone who stands in their path. There's also the Captain's Diary, which tells us that the director of the excavation site was searching for this thing, probably Azel, for over 20 years. But in the back of the Liberal District we can find Paet, who's working on this ancient thing. He'll help us, but not without us helping him first, so he wants some parts. So we'll fly over to Georgius to get them. Here lies a huge vortex tornado hurricane thing. Well, we're above Georgius, actually, above the clouds. We can encounter a lot of Lazara here, meaning that there's probably some ancient stuff nearby. We also encounter Lazara hunting groups, which are quite weird. Anyways, we can climb up to the top of the vortex and fly down it, and here we see Georgius. There's something in the middle of the vortex, and there are rocks flying around it, and ancient machines zapping it, maybe destroying or repairing it. Yeah, watch for the rolling rocks. If we hit one, we enter a battle, and they are kind of tough, these Helions, but they only activate once you hit one of the drones that are flying around, and the Guardians activate. I actually died here once. Anyways, once we break all the machines, the vortex stops, and the thing inside reveals itself. It's the front half of an ancient ship, the Shellcoof, the core component of the previous game, although its rear portion is for some reason completely missing, just chopped off. Something also interesting is how the left wings at the front are missing, as Lundi blew them up in the previous game. That's nice. Anyways, grabbing some parts, we fly back, and Pate says that they're no good. So we fly back again and think, okay, so there's a big hole in the side of the Shellcoof, so we'll fly in, though we can't use the dragon in here. And bad news, the Empire is here. Uh-oh. But there's this huge thing here. It's the corpse of the shell of the final boss from the last game. Anyways, so the soldiers fight us, we fight, and we lose. They don't believe us that we're not Kramens and think we're a part of the rebellion, so they torture us thinking we're lying. They also find the photo of the tower and consume, coincidentally correctly, that Kramen has already reached it. Anyways, yeah, so they knock us out, and Gash finds us. How did Gash make his way up into the ship? Well, he didn't. The dragon, you know, our guy, when Edge didn't come back out, he flew back to Gash and flew back to find Edge. Anyways, now it's time for us to make our escape, and it turns out the ship is not actually in Shellcoof anymore. It's just flying somewhere outside. So, yeah, we can hop onto the dragon and then fight the gunship. And it's carrying a great evil slayed by a dragon long ago, the corpse of the Guardian Dragon. Of course, after destroying the ship, the dragon reanimates. Ancient texts mention beasts cannot die until they fulfill the true purpose. Maybe the dragon awakened it, I don't know. What I do know is that I love this theme. Basically, we're fighting the reanimated corpse of the last game's final boss, or at least the first phase of it. And the strategy is kinda simple. Sometimes it'll open up its plates, unless we go behind them. We're not supposed to go behind it when the plates are closed, or it'll try to hit us with a light particle charge, which it charges then blasts. So basically what you can do to cheese it a little bit is just go back until it charges, go back to the side, and then it fires, and you can repeatedly do that and stay relatively unscathed while you slowly chip it down. And now it's finally truly dead, I assume. I mean, it exploded. I mean, it's crazy the Empire thinks they can control such power. Anyways, we also get our dragon upgraded to the Stripe Wing. I forgot to also mention this before, but you see this green bar around a save icon? That shows us our dragon power level. It progresses based on story events most of the time, and the stronger it is, the stronger we are, and the more things we can break open. Sometimes there are things like, from earlier, which we just can't break yet. We will need to break it after our dragon is powerful enough. Anyways, now that we went back to Payet, he doesn't need the parts anymore, as he saw us riding him, the dragon. And he tells us where the tower is on the northeast beyond the lake, and Pat also has this machine that's basically like a control terminal for those Amazon drones. Here we can see an area we haven't been to yet, and it just has these ruins, and it's pretty huge. As we fly around, it just gives us a lot of mystery, and as we swoop in closer, oh, it's Azel on the dragon, and she impacts the drone and damages it. Uh-oh. So those are the ruins of Aru. So apparently you can't get to the tower through the sky due to the fog, but there's a passage through Aru underground. So we should just go there and visit it, right? Also, Pat wants to ride the dragon. Well, this is an interesting mystery area. I love the theme so much. It's such a good theme, really makes you feel like you're uncovering something strange, and the area is huge. Anyways, there's this cave thing here, and it's blocked by the pillar. We also encounter lumid swarms, and we find, well, these whales. And there's also this strange thing which connects something, though it's moved out of the way. If we explore more, we can find a thing. It asks us to enter protection key 1 and then protection key 2. If we interact with the whales, we can see they'll break things nearby if you touch them, because then they'll get excited. So if we do that with the one next to the cave entrance, it breaks the thing, so it opens. But we can't get through until the thing is connected to the cliff, so you hit that a few times and you can go in. So now we can go through this strange underwater area, which I love. You don't really notice how huge these tunnels are until you ram your dragon against walls, because then you can truly see just how big it is. From our perspective, we always seem a lot larger than we really are, which is kind of a little bit annoying. I wish I could zoom out so we could show how truly tiny we are compared to the rest of the world. But anyways, so we now get out of this area and we enter the deep north of Aru. And we find the Annihilator, a ship of the Black Fleet, and now battles will basically come in waves where there's no respite. First, we have the Annihilator, of course, then rogues, then an entire aerial battle group, yeah, the entire Black Fleet is here. As we interact with the glowing things, we see that the underground facilities were sealed with 3 keys, and we have to collect all 3. Though that also activates this Guardian thing, Drenholm. So we fly around collecting keys and flying battle groups. We can confirm protection key 1, and I forgot the second one, so when we went back, we can notice that these black ruins kind of raised out of the water a little. And, oh wow, the colors changed. So anyways, yeah, we get the second key, we go back and plug it in, and now the 2 locks activate. This Drenholm thing's gonna come out. Whatever that is, they talked about this protector. And, uh-oh. It's Zastava to congratulate us on activating the Guardians of Aru. And as he escapes, this huge thing jumps out of the water and connects. The Drenholm boss battle is a little bit tricky, okay? So, everywhere is dangerous, so what you have to do is you have to kill both of its engines. Then the 2 halves separate, and the bottom half needs to be targeted where it's weak while the top half is separated. Here we can learn that enemies can give us a variety of debuffs like paralysis, poison, weakness, slowness, etc. You don't want to be stuck here as the bastard fires off these strange needles that hit you for a lot of damage if you can't move out of the way in time, so you don't want to be paralyzed. Though, it doesn't regain any health if it connects back together, and it will do that if you can't kill it in time, and you just have to hit the engines again and then chip it down again. And once the system overloads, the top explodes and the fight's over, we can take a short breather. I recommend getting some items from a shop and then preparing, as now we can activate the final seal. Our entry is granted. Now, what happens next is cool, so I just want you to watch it and enjoy. This is the Autumn Dragon Round 2. It's larger now, and it also has those protector things. Green ones heal it, and the orange ones hurt more. The rest of the fight is kinda similar to the last one. Once the dragon tucks its tail and leaves, there's also a second portion of the cutscene that I also think is really cool, so I'll just let you watch it.
頼むぞ。これ以上あの人の邪魔をするな。出なければ殺す。ふざけるな。何も知らないくせに。
So yeah, they fell into the thing, and now they're deep inside the underground ruins of Uru. There are strange bugs around them. If you're not a fan of bugs, I'm sorry, but Azel tells him to stay quiet so the bugs don't hear him. And now we get our first face-to-face with Azel, and we can see how strange she really is, but she's stuck, unable to escape. And she suggests that we escape somehow, though her legs are pinned and neither of us can escape on our own. So, before the other monsters come, it's time to move. It seems she can just control ancient machinery, so yeah. Let's get onto the phallically shaped craft and synchronize it with the gun and the vehicle, and let's go. You can truly see how absurdly huge the underground ruins are, and there are truly a lot of ruins and a lot of shafts to go down. There's an elevator here as well. It shows the big difference. If we can get to the elevator down at the very bottom, we can, well, escape. This portion is long and kinda complicated, but not that much of note happens except some stuff that's really cool. The thing with flying has 0 laser power, by the way, so there are some things you won't be able to activate. And the enemies here are these weird mutants. They start off as eggs that hatch into these weird things, but there's some more of them, and honestly, none of them are of note except for one type of guy, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So, yeah, I mentioned this before, the elevator system, it's really cool. Just look at how huge everything is compared to us. Really puts the entire building into perspective. There are some puzzles as well where we have to raise the water level so our ship can proceed, because our ship can't fly, it can only hover. And eventually we get to this one room where there's a bunch of failed dragons suspended from the ceiling. Yeah. We can also go deep down to find a cache full of stuff we can't really open because we need dragon power. And yes, you can return here with your dragon later, which is something which you really should do. By the way, did you know this game has a bestiary? On the bottom of the central bit of the ruins, there's this thing called an enegg, a nest for those nasty things we've been fighting. We have to trigger these little guys to fire upwards with something they're resistant to, and then shoot them so they absorb energy and fire up. And eventually, we can just destroy it. You see, these mutants that are inside the ruins, well, mutated after their birth. Azel also reveals that Kramen's fleet somehow went through here, though that's not very surprising considering how huge the place is. And she also tells us we should run because we just blew up the nest of these things, and oh yeah, that thing sure is mad. We could barely make it through the thing into the elevator, and now we're going up to the surface. So Azel is about to reveal something to us. So she slept in that place, back at the excavation site, for thousands of years. And while she looks human, she's internally closer to the creatures we've been fighting and to the dragons than she is to a human. It's just that her powers are different. She was awoken by Kramen, and so she will serve and protect him. She does feel sorry for what Edge has been through, though she doesn't fully understand how to apologize. She also inquires on how we control a dragon, to which Edge just doesn't know. Also, the moment is a little bit cut short by that huge fucker coming back and trying to burst into the elevator. And, well, we nearly die, and nearly fall. Oh, no, we fell. But don't worry, the dragon's chasing us now, our dragon, and he saves us. So, we fly back up to the surface, we're out of the ruins now, and this huge nasty fucking thing's back, so let's destroy it. The Basilisk is, well, okay, so you want to destroy the little tails, but not the ones facing you, because they'll fire stuff off, and if you don't destroy them in time, they'll be fired at us. Then it turns to face us, and it can hit us with the strong attack. Also, its weak point is its dick. But instead of just shooting it wherever, you should hit the thing on its head, because if you don't kill it, it'll keep calling in for reinforcements that reattach. Those are little tail things you have to destroy. Kill the thing on top, and then kill the big guy by shooting him in his dick until he dies. But Adam calls for Azel, and she has to leave us. Also, our dragon fully evolves. It's now the Dragon Panzer Wing. Pretty cool, right? Now is the time we see the true scale of a level 3 Atom Dragon. Yeah, and she also informs us that we'll die if we mess with Kramen. She leaves, and we're prompted to insert Disc 3. So, this is basically a halfway point. So now, let's go back to Georges. Shellcoof, the half of it that's still here, is interesting. You can destroy those side bits. Don't do it, though. You'll first need to activate all of these little weird things, and then go inside the back of the ship, though we can't do that yet until we have full dragon power. But just don't blow up the ship for now, okay? Also, I just now realized if you open up the map, you can check how far the Imperial and Black Fleet have advanced, which is kind of cool. So if you go back to the caravan now, the kid Ankak is very sick and we need to help him, somehow. So anyways, I went to my camp after some more exploring, and Pate is here. He wants to ride the dragon with us, and apparently it seems that the underground passage at Aru was sealed. But Pate tells us something else that completely changes our plans. You see, the fog that stops us from flying to the tower was created by Mel-Kava, the god's carriage. It's legendary and defended the tower during the Ancient Age. And, of course, in order to reach the tower, we have to blow it up. So, as we come back to Zoa, we see some Imperial soldiers, which have some kind of business here. And they're basically threatening to demolish the entire town unless it's loyal to the Empire. So, if you fly back to the southern ruins of Aru, you can find these birds which you can fly back to their mother, and once all the birds are there, the mother leaves and we can find the Tabitama rock in the nest. This will be important for the kid later. Now, if you go back to the ruins of the dragon, there are more goodies to get, but also some important things. There's a path to floor B?F. Our dragon isn't permitted to go here, so we can get off of it and take one of those machines Azel drove around. And there's a weird pipe segment where at the end of each tunnel there are some goodies, and there's floor B?F. It's cool. In the central area, there's a few things we also need to do. Firstly, go back to the goodies area to get everything else. But there's also a central area with a door we haven't been to because it was up too high previously. But now, as we're on the dragon, we can find some interesting secrets. and also a D unit. Basically, here they talk about the drones and their thought index failures. There was a serious defect of some kind in the drones, and they made some mechanism to fix it, and now their latest subject is doing fine, and their problem that they had was solved by manipulating its lifespan, and they named it Azel. We also learned that the drone has still not been found after some recent attack, and that she, Azel, wasn't completed yet. They also talk about the sheer power of the Lightwing, the ultimate form. It's a renegade project of some kind they were asked to destroy, and instead of doing that, they sealed the data and divided it into 12 pieces called the D units and scattered them throughout the game. This is why you need to collect them. Once you're out of the ruins, you can go back to the caravan and sell the Tabitama stone. You can sell it to them, they'll heal their kid, and this will be very useful later. Heading back, there's also a strange bird secret to find the first D unit. It's really weird, but yeah. Returning to Zoa, there's this guy who tells us that we're invited into the Holy District as Vaimon, the leader, needs us. This is also a really pretty area. There are some people to chat with, but more importantly, Vaimon needs our help. Basically, they hate the Empire, and they want us to do something. He also reveals that Pyatt told him about us as he's his son. And basically, Vaimon wants us to attack a nearby Imperial outpost at morning during the fog, but if we go to the excavation site right now, instead we can find Radgam the Hunter's lifeless body. And if we get this gun and give it to a person later, we get some reward. But before that, we can talk to a guy who gives us the defense plans of the Imperial base. It basically explains how to get in and blow up the control tower. Anyways, we can get more info from the lore on this dude about the towers, dragons, and the tower energy report. It's quite interesting. You can look it up on the wiki if you want. Anyways, it's time to hit up the Imperial base. So, they kinda know something's here, so it's yellow alert time. Okay, so let's have some fun. I recommend you blow everything up. Anyways, here you can fight patrol groups, which will run and then call an enforcer that'll attack you. These are really annoying to deal with, so deal with the traces, avoid the cannons. Sometimes you'll fight stingers, they're not that hard, just avoid the attacks. After that, you can find these missile cruisers, as you've pissed them off enough, and they're easy to kill. Just make sure that it doesn't fire the missiles at you, and it can only fire in front. And after you cause another devastation, you'll alert the Behemoth. It's the Emperor's battle station, though incomplete. It's questionable if it can run Crisis or not. You need to disable the sub-cannon that's shooting at you on the bottom and then fire at its sides while it's shut down. Then after enough damage is dealt, they power up the disintegrator. You want to not get hit by it if it isn't obvious. Fire at it, but only with lasers. Once the engine room is damaged enough, the ship crashes. Red alert activates, meaning the border gates disable in the internal perimeter and activate on the external perimeter. It basically locks you in. Now, once you basically blow up everything and continue fighting them, it's time. You can go in and destroy the main building, and because of that, to start off some kind of revenge, they'll fire the Deathmaker at Zoa, and we have to stop it. We need to destroy the launch pad. It seems those guys know that Vaimon tricked them, but we didn't destroy it in time, so the thing is launched. We have 7 minutes before detonation. Also, the boss battle is of course timed, so this boss is kind of a little bit maybe forgettable. You need to hit its sides and avoid getting pushed back behind it at first because it's continuously accelerating. Then you just have to keep on hitting it. The Deathmaker will keep accelerating and eventually release. Once you've done enough damage, it's gonna be a bit weird to you. So when you hit it with lasers, the central thing spins. If you hit it more, it'll bounce off. You need to time your shots so it slows down, and eventually you can kill it with a bit of time to spare. Returning to Zoa, you can now go to the church and talk to Vayman. He's talking to some guy, a high priest, about rumors, making fun of some ancient lightning weapon they have. We'll see this later. Vayman basically thinks the city is protected by the gods, while the high priest is more rational, and we'll obviously see who's proven right later. If you play the game, you know. We should come back tomorrow, and actually no, Pate tells us that he has a thing for us. A letter telling us to come there tonight. So we do that, and it's Trayman. And apparently, he wants to save the world from extinction. Azel is a key element to this, so he just had to be ruthless, and then... yeah, so he tried to kill us and he ran away, and okay, thank you, Pate, for saving our life. Anyways, so speaking to Vayman, he gives us a temple key. He also wants to give us an honored position, and he'll guilt trip us into saying yes. It really doesn't matter what you choose, I'll explain later. You can also get a dragon report here talking about the dragons. They have a lightning shot from their mouth that bends towards its targets. Their power is like that of 50 gunships. Anyways, in the temple, there's an ancient device. If we come there at night, when it glows and interact with it, something is echoing in our head, and we can see it. The Mel-Kava. Moving around somewhere north of Zoa. And that's the tower! Oh, it turns we passed out while having the vision, so Pat will wake us up and then later give us a report on the Mel-Kava here, basically telling us how to destroy it. We should destroy its engines, but the path is blocked by these crawling guardians. Mel-Kava also fires off these super strong particles that blow things away, so we should probably try to destroy them. And also there are these exhaust ports that would make it unstable if we damage. And if we can't stop any of them, we could get a device of some kind that protects us. I don't know what that means. But yeah, we can also sell the large gun that we found earlier on Radgam at the shop of Zoa for some cash. Anyways, it's Mel-Kava time. So how do you destroy something so big? Well, first we have to fly in behind it. It seems quite small, though the closer you get, the larger it is. There are more Lazara here to fight, but also some drones. As we get underneath the ship, we can see the exhaust ports which we can break. They're the ones that are firing those weird things at us. And we want to avoid those things and enter the big hole in the bottom. And yeah, there are huge spiders here. They'll fuse plasma slowly, and we should shoot at them before they blow us up. In this fight, we also can't move around, as we're in an enclosed space. This will be more important in a later fight. Anyways, while we're going through the ship, we activate Defense System 04. We have to target it with lasers and then shoot it. It'll pull its arms together, and then further away. Also, you should dodge the lasers. Anyways, once we fly out, we come closer to the particle launches, which we can damage and break from here, but now we have to fight a photon cannon, which you defeat by getting behind it and shooting. Moving further forwards, we can damage the frontal area a bit and then enter inside. We have more of the strange innards and continue towards the Mel-Kava internal reactor. We have access to these platforms that will stop the light particles from hitting us when we move them up, and we can go underneath that and just shoot at the reactor to kill it. But as we climb up to the upper area, we see that the thing's still flying, so there's a light energy reactor. Let's blow it up. But once we do and fly up, we can see how many of them there are. We haven't even made a dent in it. So we fly up and try to destroy the top photon generators, and then after we destroy basically everything on the top, we fly into the front and destroy the second reactor. And now it's time for us to escape as Mel-Kava explodes. But wait a minute, a familiar song starts to play. Yeah, the Atom Dragon, and look at the size of it. Both the dragon and the massive Hellstorm laser it fires are just so cool. We need to make sure it doesn't hit us. The idea is to go into the front while the area is green and pull back when it's red. That'll make it fire the Hellstorm even if it can't hit us. If we hit the central weak spot, the gun will cease operation and give us a moment of respite. And once the dragon is down, phase 2 begins, as Atom gets rid of the huge gun it was carrying, and it's now fighting us properly. This fight is like the previous Atom Dragon fight, but a little bit harder. The floating things are harder to hit, but eventually we can destroy it, and get the Dragon Eye Wing. But now, Atom actually falls, so we have to save Azel. We both fly down in order to save her, something we're actually successful in, but as we fly to Zoa in order to do something, hey, there's Pit working on his flyer and Drig Ori. Oh no, who called in the fleet? Yeah, they started sieging the city, and a giant thing begins to move. I think you know what this is, but I don't think you were expecting it to do that. The entire city, it's destroyed. And Azel just flat out isn't responding anyways, so we may have to fight the Empire alone. So let's head back to the Shellcoof at Georgius now. We can activate a thing and get pulled towards the back of the ship with some energy that goes in. And if we head all the way in, we can see that now there's a little dragon, like a hologram of a dragon, similar to the previous dragon from the previous games. And it leads us forwards towards the front of the Shellcoof, where this strange dragon crest awaits. It's called the Genesis Chamber. If we access it, we get a little baby dragon thing which now follows us. It's a cute little thing. It's not just a pet, and it's actually kind of important later on, but yeah, this is a secret, basically. Anyways, so as we destroy the last of its wings, or try to, because it's gonna fight back a little bit, but once we do that, it'll finally sink and explode for good. We can also return to Aru for a D unit now, and the little guy just kind of stays with us and flies around together with us. Anyways, let's head back to the Imperial base again. We should fight the Grigor Inn. But first we have to fight through the entire fleet, so now it's time to fight the flagship. It's finally time. This thing blocks us from moving to one specific side, and good fucking luck. Okay, the way it works is interesting. So the rotary cannons do a fuckload of damage, so you don't want to be hit by them. You don't want to be hit at all, but you'll be hit. We're supposed to just shoot the thing for a little bit, then it'll open up these exhaust ports, 3 of them, 1 of 3, and you have to just find it and shoot at the weak spot. Eventually, we go underneath the ship and fire at the bottom ports, and we assume this'll be it, and then the ship just repairs itself. So what do we do now? Fuck it, just let's run. Have we lost? Is this a cool death scene? No. Our dragon takes a head-on shot that blew up a city and holds strong. The Black Fleet have arrived, and we're in the middle of 2 sides, and there's also Zastava, who wants to kill us. So let's finally deal with him. The Spectre is an interesting but honestly the most forgettable boss, and I completely forgot about him until now. You can only hit him with your berserk power attacks, and he dodges basically everything else, so just spam whatever you have, and he's eventually dead. We can also see that there's a new letter on Azel's body. It tells us that we need to meet Kramen at the tower, as only we can save the world together, and Kramen tells us that Azel is far too complex for us to understand, that if she doesn't go to the tower, she'll never become conscious again. And so as our hands are kinda tied, let's go to the tower finally. And coming here for the first time felt so good. We can see how absurdly massive these structures are. Kramen immediately instructs us on what we should do, and fuck it, let's do it. Anyways, as we come in, Kramen shows us how the enemy is approaching firstly, and then Kramen tells us a bit about what he believes. In his mind, the fleet and the tower all belong in the ancient age. The purpose of these towers is to create a habitable environment for a dead planet. Even today, we're protected by their power, and they all have a purpose. They are here to take care of the ecosystem, to protect mankind from extinction. He wants someone or something to take control of it, so humans stop destroying everything, as basically he believes the world has a delicate balance that we have to respect. So, this tower is currently sleeping, not awake, it's asleep, remember that. But basically, towers can't be destroyed from the outside, but if you take control of them from the inside, after you break in, you can use them. Azel is a weapon created for that purpose. That's why they were searching for it. So the Empire is trying to break in, and we have to stop them. Edge is our only hope while Kramen merely set the stage. He has to fulfill his own destiny. Now we're in the tower, which is a really cool place, and we have to stop them from entering from the top of the tower. The tower is full of vast areas connected by gates, and the shortest route is already open. We can fight some skiff patrol groups here. They're a mix of flamethrower turrets, not too easy to defeat but not too hard either. Marauders are a similar story, just avoid the red zones until they charge and then tear them to bits. Pyros are just flamers, but a lot of them. You have to hit them where they're weak, and you have to watch out for how oriented they are. They're very annoying. And as the Imperial troops have already invaded the upper floors, we don't have much time until they properly reach us. We need to hit that transport ship now. And by the way, this place is a maze, so I'm cutting a lot of stuff out. Once we reach the top, we find it. The Exterminator. The way it works is weird. So, there's a thing which keeps going down. You can't hit it up here where it's safe. And once it gets down to the bottom and back up, it'll fire missiles at you wherever you are. And you don't want to be in the front because it hurts a lot there, but it's also weak there, so be careful. Once it explodes, it seems that this was a trick, because they're also invading from the bottom, not just from the top. Anyways, so we cut to us running towards Kramen, and it's too late. The Empire's down here. Azel's awake now, which is good, but both of them are held at gunpoint, which is bad. The Emperor is here as well. Kramen tried something, but the Emperor was one step ahead of him, and uh-oh, he fucked up. The Emperor punished him by shooting him, and Azel ran to him, and the Emperor really does think he's won. I mean, hey, there's Azel, but he just made the worst mistake of his fucking life, as she actually begins to cry. And the tower reacts to her emotions, and as she screams, fuck, she just awoke the tower. One of those monsters from the beginning of the game just jumps down and fucking kills the Emperor. Edge grabs Azel, but before they could escape, the monster stabs Kramen directly through his heart. Something interesting here is that while Azel falls unconscious, her eye color changes to blue, which is really interesting. Anyways, so Edge is determined, and even though his gun doesn't do much damage seemingly, he keeps shooting at it, and eventually they escape. And as they escape, we can see how angry the tower is, as it's been activated. So the monsters inside are now awake, and they attack the Grigorin, which is absolutely no match for the tower's monsters. This is the end of Disc 3. You really didn't think we were at the end once we reached the tower, did you? Okay, so what do we do now? Fuck, well there's no Zoa, so let's go back to the caravan, as it's about the only place we can go to from now. There's a Seeker from Zoa here, and he was basically there just to find us with a message from Gash. He wants us to find the Seeker's stronghold. Heading there, hey, we can talk to Gash, and he said that we have to accommodate for Azel first, which is interesting they know how to do that. Anyways, they'll do what they can to awaken her. Paige thankfully escaped as well, and here's the full story. The Seekers aren't actually just a band of Tomb Raiders, that's just a front. They're a secret society. It wasn't by luck that they met, they were searching for Edge. And they want to use him and his dragon to destroy the towers. Basically, while the towers do control the environment, they also breed those monsters that make sure humans can't live freely. The dragons ended the Ancient Age by terminating all the active ruins and towers, seemingly, and Gash believes the Divine Visitor is the dragon itself and wants Azel to lead it. So here's the idea. There's this thing called the Saturn. It connects all parts of the towers together, and if we destroy it, we can finally end the Ancient Age. Here we can also learn that there's the Diary of Lundi, the protagonist of Panzer Dragoon Saga. He also tells us how the world was molded into its current shape by the towers, as they, as I said earlier, control the environment, breed monsters, and control human populations. So, because even in the Ancient Age people fought against the towers, that's why the Ancients gave them these monsters for self-defense purposes. Basically, one dragon is posted at each tower, and it does its duty to this day. The only force that can really stop them are other dragons. Our dragon is the inherited soul of Lundi's dragon, and it's the dragon that exists to kill other dragons. All of your other dragons are enemies. You have the Heresy Dragon. Then he goes on to explain the plot of Panzer Dragoon Saga. Basically, it also tells us that the dragons will always try to find the right person, and you will always be seriously inclined to help them. Anyways, let's wake up Azel. It's a good thing that she woke up, but something weird happened. She's different now. She seems to have had a nightmare. And at first, she doesn't seem to understand what was happening, because she was dreaming and she has never really had a dream before. What's happening to her? Anyways, Gash kinda tries to bring her up to speed, but the Grigorin is approaching, and we have to stop it. Azel doesn't even know Edge's name yet until this point, where she asks him, though she has to stay here because she has to, you know, think about some things. Going back to the caravan now, we can talk to the guy here, and because we helped a kid not die from a disease, we can get a cool weapon upgrade and everybody's happier. We can also read the Tower Function Report, which tells us how the rulers of the ancient times were basically here to create those towers specifically to control the human populations. The only way to free ourselves is to destroy them. There are two categories of tower, the preservation and production ones. At the same time, they purify the water, air, and soil to enlarge habitable areas and deploy monsters to remove the elements that threaten the environment. That includes humans. But over the years, the towers have worn down and aren't actually regenerating the world. If the towers return to normal, they'll kill a lot of people, but if they don't, the environment will just become more and more harsh. The Saturn is basically the will of the ancients. It controls all the towers in a space between time and space, where no mortal can reach it, not alone. If the Saturn is destroyed, all the towers will sleep, so in order to make contact with it, we need to cross a gap both in time and space. While it can be reached from any tower, no methods of opening the gate have been discovered. Yet. Anyways, let's go talk to Gash and get ready. The crew of Grigorin is being eaten alive by the monsters, the deck is just covered in monsters, the ship is out of control, and it seems to be controlled by the... oh yeah, they're after us. Anyways, it's time to head to the Forest of Zoa and attack this thing, but it's very far from us, and you can see it in the distance. To get to it, we can just go underground, where the whole forest's on fire. Yeah, this is a huge maze. There's also a D unit here, and a gate we can't get past, not yet at least. It's a bit important for later. So we can fly up towards the Grigorin, and there's a lot of flying bastards you have to fly when you're going to it. But now that we're actually at the thing, I mean, look at it, it's just infested with bugs. Now, it's a very similar thing to the last fight, where you have to hit the open bits as it shits out parasites to stop us from attacking properly, similarly to the previous fight. Once that part of the ship is damaged enough, we'll have to destroy the monsters charging the ship without getting obliterated by the cannon. Don't stay in front of the cannon when it's charging, it does over 1,000 damage when it hits you. Be careful. Once that's done, the ship explodes. And now we get the final non-secret dragon form, the Dragon Armling. Back in the stronghold, Gash tells us it's his fault that he didn't have anyone watching over Azel when, oh fuck, she ran off to somewhere. Then with tracks leading north, so I have some idea of where she went. She is the key to open the tower, so yeah, she's in the ruins of Aru in that secret place we went to previously. We get some exposition about her, the fact she was created, not born, how the towers want to enslave the world, and she knows that because when she was synchronized with the tower, she knew what it was doing. The Saturn, according to her, is sadly beyond her knowledge. She also specifies that her role is just to control the tower. We also have a chat about Kramen, where Edge looks back and thinks about how Kramen's death didn't really solve anything. Anyways, we can head back to the Forest of Zoa now, on the other side, and we can enter these red ruins, and after we solve some puzzles, we get to the same statue we found in the desert. We can also find the dragon's crest, though we can't do anything with it yet. This area is going to be a bit important later. If you head through the central area, we'll now be able to enter the Goril Desert, showing how basically the entire world is connected with underground tunnels. Back at the stronghold, due to the monsters the tower released, the Seekers are planning to abandon the base. They can't go after the Saturn now and plan to return to it after like 20-30 years. But Edge and Azel think they can do it, to stop the tower, properly now. The Aru Tower records tell us that it's the really complex structure. Inside the tower there are 5 separate sections, and to move between them we have to pass through the outer areas with some complex routes. In the middle floors there are rotating units we have to deal with, and 6 rotor piles we have to deactivate. So let's go to the tower. The lower entrance is broken and the security system is activated, so we have to go to the top and make our way down to the bottom manually. There are some security systems we have to deal with and deactivate the rotor pile. The tower looks cool as fuck when it's active, and this is sort of a giant final puzzle gauntlet. But wait, we can find my final 2D units, and we can turn into the Lightwing, the secret form of the dragon, and isn't it fucking cool and weird? And now our laser rank has gone up. While going through the tower further, we can encounter things like the Twin Guardians, which we have to kind of separate and then destroy them both. It's not very hard. But before we go further down, let's run some errands now that we have full laser power. We can go to the Goril Desert and open up that old shipwreck where we find the Plasma Swarm upgrade. We can also break some stuff like the fans in the valley and get some stuff in return. And now in the Forest of Zoa, because we have Little Baby Dragon and the Lightwing, once we interact with the Dragon Crest, we can get the Dragon Solo Wing. This is the super secret final form of the dragon, the ultimate life form. So let's finally stock up on some gear and see this game to the end. There are some weird Scopitaras down here, some Sentinels, some weird floors, and it's honestly sort of boring when you look back at it, but it's fun as you're doing it because it's the final part of the game. Anyways, there's a battle droid boss. You just shoot it before it shoots you. That's the last Guardian, which is, it's actually interesting because after the fight, Azel says that she's feeling weird, and she has to think about it, because just like her, that boss was activated after thousands of years of sleep and just to fight and die. So she wonders why the ancients created her as, you know, in a human form. She isn't really that different from the monsters, no. Is the human form really beneficial? And as it's probably obvious to you, is because she has advanced cognitive functions, feelings, emotions. She is basically becoming human. Something Detroit Become Human would shamelessly steal many years later. There's also some bullshit with the alert systems where you have to fly correctly with when the things aren't active, otherwise they'll be angry at you. No, there's a lot of going floor to floor. Eventually, you hit the final save point. Beyond this point lies the end of the game. Let's do it. So as we come down into this strange area, Azel lies down in this pod. As it lifts up, it activates the system. She has to stay there basically while Edge destroys the Saturn, and she will destroy the tower so the Saturn won't be able to escape. She's the only one who can destroy the tower, though she also begins to have feelings for Edge, saying she loves him, and Edge promises to come back for her. There's also a funny moment here. No matter what your final dragon form is in the game, in the FMVs, it's always going to be the Dragon Armling. As we enter into the Saturn, the entire tower becomes green. We have the light fly into the sky, and the tower rots into a husk. Now, we're in the Saturn. This is it. Before we fight it, we have to go through the 5 dragon forms. The anti-dragons. The anti-basic wing is a pushover, just go to the sides and shoot. The anti-valiant wing will switch classes, now it's in defensive mode, which makes it a little bit more annoying, but it's easy. The anti-stripe wing enters attack mode, it'll keep trying to turn towards you, while being more deadly everywhere but at the front. It'll eventually lock up for a bit, and switch to a different type of wing, you know, the assault wing. It's easy, you can shoot it. The Panzer wing switches to agility first, again you're only safe behind it, and this one doesn't fuck around, but it also dies really quickly. And so the anti-eye wing is basically the final one. The guy switches the spiritual class, and will fire off berserk shots. You'll need to heal for a bit, but it also goes down kinda quickly. Once the 5 of them are done, the Saturn appears in front of you like a strange dragon, but it's anything but. This strange thing is the Saturn. Hitting each one of these spheres shows us a part of the history of Panzer Dragoon up to this point. How the towers kept searching for impurities, destroying them in previous games, how the previous bosses were defeated, how the towers were destroyed. Once we read all the visions, the fight can properly begin. We have to be on the same side as the dragon, as it's weak there, though not as at the same side as the ghost dragons, or they'll laser us. Then, if it uses detect vibrations, just hold still, because it'll hit us through the heart for massive damage if we move. After damaging it for a bit more, the Saturn will reveal its true form. It looks hideous. You don't want to be near its front, but it also has an ability. A fused version of a previously defeated boss, which is just a solid object which hits you for massive damage. And the Guardian Shellcoof, though, in its entirety, and not just the front half, and the Mel-Kava, and it even throws a fused Adrenal. Honestly, maybe more, but I haven't seen the other ones. But yeah, if you just hit the dragon at the right point in time enough times, you can kill it. Enjoy this cutscene with me. And I'm about to blow your fucking mind as I promised in the beginning, okay?
この声、ドラゴンなのか?
9世紀の残した遺跡、すべては今、私と共にある。さあ、私を殺してくれ。絶対の客人よ。そのために私は帰ってきたのだ。
絶対の客人? それってドラゴンの?
そうではない。
どういう意味だ?
私は絶対の客人を導く存在に過ぎない。9世紀の呪縛を解き、世界を再び人の手に戻せるのは、外の世界よりドラゴンに導かれた者。君だけなのだ。
So, isn't that so fucking cool? You, the player character, are considered as a separate fucking entity from the character that you control. I get that modern games have broken the fourth wall a few times to be cool, but this ending in this game left my jaw on the fucking floor. Not only that, but the background area here is the same as when we were selecting our name, and not only that, but if you remember back in the beginning, when Gash talks about the Divine Visitor, he looks at the camera, the player. You don't really think of it, he's just looking around in the darkness, but, like, it's crazy. And it gets better. So, right after this, Gash and his guy are out there, but Edge hasn't returned yet. Credits roll, except... Wait a minute. This guy is advising someone not to go further west. I assume you get what's going on here. There's a person worth risking their life for. Well, there's a village just beyond the desert, so our mystery character will now head towards there. Now we can finally see the end screen. This is where the game ranks how successful we are. The first four are self-explanatory. The spiritual closest were how much you interact with the dragon. Because I just called him dragon and didn't really interact with him, I can't play with him for closeness points. Anyways, so we can save and come back to the game, and now we're in the post-boss area, though before we defeated the boss. We've now unlocked Box Game after we defeat the Saturn. And there's some cute little post-game content like a goofy camp where you can be the tiny dragon things. Also two game modes where one of them is just like a race course with a lap and a world record time. The other one is just blow up as many things at the Imperial base as you can before the time runs out. That's basically the game. You can get other backgrounds if you get very high completion percentages, I believe, but that's really about it. Going back to the ending, if you couldn't tell, that's Azel. She escaped the tower, and we actually know, well, we don't know what happens to her. We know what happens after whatever would happen to her in the meanwhile, but that's something that you'll need to find out yourself. The story of Panzer Dragoon goes on. Now look, I've seen critiques of this game before. It's not particularly difficult, and you know what, the level design, it's not that complicated, and the English version isn't even dubbed, and some things don't even have voice lines. But does any of that matter? There's a weird thing I've seen in reviews where some people review games like it's a multiple choice test in school, but they basically score a game on its graphics, gameplay, sound, difficulty, story, and all of them are then mathematically calculated, and that's just wrong. Because games aren't just sums of their parts, they're an entire thing, they're an art piece, and all parts of the game are also not worth an equal amount. Imagine if Resident Evil had good voice acting and writing, but bad gameplay. Imagine if the new Super games had unique plots, but all played like shit. Obviously, some elements are more important than others, and this game just hits basically everywhere where it matters. The story is more impressive than what you would find in a lot of modern games. The music is simply incredible. The art direction is also extremely good. The gameplay is just so unique, the world building is so good. The fucking menu sound effects are better than anything else I've seen. Panzer Dragoon Saga is, in my opinion, better than basically all games that came before it, and for now, all games that came out after it, until they make a remake or a sequel. The game is just a fucking entrancing experience. You will play it, regardless if you think it's gonna be okay or mid or whatever the fuck, and you'll get sucked in like a piece of dust into a vacuum cleaner. You just need to play it. Trust me. This is the first time I've ever done, like, a video on a game that's, like, what you would, I guess, call a video essay or whatever. I don't know, I feel like my blood's turning to soy and flesh turning to tofu. Not because there's anything wrong with video essays, but I just hate the term, because it reminds me of, like... you know what I mean. Yeah, this isn't very scripted, is it? But yeah, nobody watches the end portions of the video after whatever, so thanks for sticking around. This is like a hobby for me entirely, obviously. And so at the point in time, just for the future, if something big happens, which I know it won't, I'm talking about a game that is like the best game nobody played, you know? Right now, I'm at almost 1,600 subscribers, and I'm kind of known as the anti-Nintendo 64 guy. when that's not even really the case. Fuck. It's just kinda... I have a vendetta against, like, misrepresenting history, I guess. Anyways, I'm thinking about in the future maybe doing this more. Like, I'll do... Because I like doing Let's Plays. This is my channel, and I like to have fun. I'm not trying to be a YouTuber. So, what I'll probably do in the future, maybe, is, like, I'll play something like Resident Evil, and then afterwards, you know, I'll make a proper review of it, and then, you know, go over my experiences, whatever. Just because I think that you get the best of both worlds, at least for me. Anyways, yeah. I guess thanks for watching play the video game. I know it's hard, but I believe in you. Sega, please make a sequel or a remaster, please! At least put up an emulated version online for sale, please!